I'm going to. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Larry Benge is my name. Thank you for joining us this evening for this seminar on All on 4. It's indeed a great pleasure to be able to present it to you. At the moment, I'm waiting. There's a lot of people who are actually then logging on. So I'll just give them a few minutes if I can, just for them to get on, and then I will start. So bear with me. It might take the numbers jumping up very quickly, so shouldn't be too long. So I suggest we'll start in about 2 minutes' time. Thank you. Shall I just... Ladies and gentlemen, as I said earlier, there's more participants actually logging on. So I was just delaying until a few people more were actually getting on to the site. I want to welcome you all. I'll get started now, and people can join us as we're progressing. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is really the gold standard of All on 4. And All on 4 is a name which has been bandied around for a long time. And All on 4 is really a technique. It's a protocol that was developed by Professor Malo, which I'll tell you about throughout the lecture. So please allow me, as I'm going through, to give it a great detail in what you can do. And if you've got a pen and paper, it's going to be great, because there's going to be some questions that you need to write down. So whenever you go and have a consultation, it's going to be really important, I think, to be able to answer the appropriate questions, because it'll mean that you're going to get the exact thing that All on 4 was invented to be, and we follow a particular protocol which is very, very important. because all the research that has been done on all on four over many, many years, and it was in 1995 that it was actually developed, and all the research papers through that time have been done by Professor Malo. And so we have a lot of research in doing this, so it's not experimental. What you will find is there's a lot of other systems that have come onto the market over a period of time, and they have very little research, or if no research at all. And I'll tell you the pitfalls of what to look for, where you should go. And I should always say that when you advertise a surgical procedure like we do, or anybody does, it's always imperative that you actually tell people that they need to get a second opinion. It's very, very important, because as we go through, you'll understand the significance of that. So I'm now going to just share the screen. I may pop back. At the end, I should say there's a box at the bottom, which is question and answers. You can actually put as many question and answers there as you like, and I will certainly get back and answer as many as I can. The beauty about being able to do this is I'm not on a time frame, except I'd have to do a radio show out of Melbourne and Sydney after this, so you can continue listening there if you like. So I'm now just going to share the screen, and you'll see some slides actually coming up now, and bear with me. So what I'm talking about here is the all-on-4 treatment concept, and it's really the gold standard. At Bond Street Dental, we adhere to that. Noble Biocare is the implant company that actually holds the license for all-on-4. All-on-4 was invented, as I said, in 1995 by Professor Paulo Malo, my good friend, in Lisbon, in Portugal. And over the years, the dynamic part about all-on-4 is it's not static. What that means is the protocol that was developed has been continually developed. New products have been added to the line, and it's made us more able to treat more cases, which are much more difficult, which previously would only be able to be treated by bone grafting. So it's really been quite exciting in terms of the journey that Malo has provided for us in the all-on-4 treatment concept. You'll see the gentleman on the left-hand side happens to be Professor Brennemark. He's from the inventor, really, of dental implants. In 1965, I think it was, that he actually developed and did the first implant case. And he always said that people that either have dentures, lost all their teeth, are really handicapped. So he came up with this principle of using titanium, which is a metal which is used in other parts of the body, by the way. And the ability to use the titanium is that titanium is not like a screw that you go to Bunnings and you can buy and put it into a piece of wood. That screw from Bunnings just goes into a piece of wood and has no it only has mechanical retention. Whereas titanium, when it goes into the bone actually grows onto the surface of it. And that has been the secret behind osseointegration. So the Professor Malo in the middle, and he has been the director of Malo Clinic and for many, many years, and my good friends. And now I was with Malo Clinic, I'm now with Bond Street. So we've had many, many years of being together over a long period of time. And it's important because you'll see that people advertise they've been trained by Professor Malo. And you have to be very careful because there's a lot of courses that get done over the whole journey. And people go on a 3 or 4 or 5 day journey and have a course in Lisbon in Portugal. The reality is they don't do any surgery at those courses, absolutely none. All they do is watch. So when you're training is actually not watching. It's certainly part of the learning process, but you need to be there year on year, learning the procedures, doing the surgery yourself and practicing it. And that's where my journey has been through Professor Malo, and he's a guest through Professor Brennemark. So what is all-on-4? All-on-4 is a simple term, and all it means is all the teeth sit on 4 implants in each jaw. And it's like the leg of a chair. Leg of a chair's got, a chair's got four legs, so it's quite stable. So Professor Malo, when he actually came up with the all-on-4 concept, decided that the all-on-4 needed to be something that it did a couple of things. And that was, A, it avoided bone grafting. So you should write down, if you've got a pen and paper, all-on-4 has no bone grafting. Because prior to all-on-4, what we used to have to do if you didn't have enough bone was to actually take bone from the other part of your body, either your hip, your knee, or other parts of your jaw, and transplant it. That was often successful, but it was often unsuccessful. And you certainly couldn't treat smokers, and you certainly, with diabetics, it was risky. So the success rate was poor. So what happened when Professor Malo invented the all-on-4 protocol, by carrying out the procedure without bone grafting, meant the success rate jumped from the 95 to the 98%, very high compared to where it came with bone grafting, which was in the 70s. And the other thing, what he created, was he created a thing called immediate loading. That means you get your teeth straight away. Prior to that, and I've been doing implants for many, many years, 30 plus years, is that you needed to put the implant into the bone, and you then needed the implant to heal for 3 months before you could put any pressure on it. And yet with all-on-4, we put the implant in on the same day as we put the teeth on. So it happens within 24 hours. Now it's very important to understand that no matter which way you do it, it still takes 3 months for the bone to actually grow onto the implant. That osseointegration takes 3 months, and you actually cannot rush that process. The beauty of the all-on-4 is that the teeth actually splint the implants together so that you're able to put the implants in and put the teeth on. Now, to put the implants and the teeth on, you need to achieve something called torque, T-O-R-Q-U-E. So the mechanics in the audience will understand that. That means when you put something into some bone, it's not flopping around in the bone, it's actually very, very firm. So the implant is very, very important. So the next thing you should write down is you need to use an implant which is made by Noble Biocare, and it is called a speedy implant. Strange name, but that's what they named it. But the original implant was an external hex. That meant if you look at the implant on the right-hand side, the whole of the implant is solid. Now, if you compare the implant on the left-hand side, that's called an internal connection implant. Now, that internal connection implant, if you look at the walls of that, the top part of the walls are very thin. Now, if you go to 10 dentists and ask, would they like to use an external implant or an internal? A lot of people would say, I'd like to use an internal. But for all-on-4, unless you make the implant thick enough with an internal, it's not appropriate to use an internal implant. So Professor Malo, what he did is he created both an external and an internal implant of the speedy range. But what he did compared to the implant on the left-hand side is he actually made the walls of the implant thicker, because you can imagine all-on-4 has the front implant straight and the back implants on an angle. So if you look at the implants on the angle, they take more force. So if the walls of the implant are not thick enough, then there's a chance that the implant can split. So when you actually look at the other companies today that all say, oh, we do all-on-4, their implants don't meet the design of the implant that comes out of the Noble Biocare company, because A, they are the wrong design at the tip of the implant in order to achieve what we call bicortical stability, and that's a technical term to say the implant, when it goes into the bone, is rock solid. It also is an implant that doesn't cut bone. It compresses or condenses bone. So it can take bone that is a little bit soft and it can go into that bone and make it firmer, which means it also gives extra stability.